I'm T-Junkie and welcome back to part 25. Due to recommendation about how to create models in Blender, then import them into Unity, I'll be creating a video on how to do that. For the next tutorial, however, I'm going to be creating a coin. It's quite simple, but it's going to be a coin. And that coin we're going to use as a little, actually a pickup in the game. So to do this, when you load up Blender, you'll be greeted with this screen here. Loads and loads of options, but don't worry, a lot of this we won't be actually using at the moment. You just have to left mouse click to get rid of this, and then you get all this. Now, if you select with the left mouse, you'll only move this center reference point. So everything you select, you use the right mouse button to do. So if I select this, it's the camera on the scene. We don't need this, so I can delete it. I don't need the light, so I can delete that. And then I've got the cube here. Now I'm just going to delete this because I don't actually need a cube. Now, this center reference point I always leave in the middle, and that's because when you create a cylinder or a cube or a rectangle or a plane or anything like that, it'll spawn in a 3D view on this point, centered on this point. So if over here in the underneath Tools tab, we click Create and we find Cylinder. By the way, all these menus are left mouse. It's only in here that you need to use the right mouse. If you press the middle mouse button and drag, you can rotate. If you, before I do anything crazy, I might want to actually edit this. If I just want this to go 16, this is how many vertices it has. So if you have a look, you see it's changed. If you want more, you can add more, but I'll keep it relatively low poly for now. Now, what I'm going to do is, down here you'll see quite a few. You've got like an animation window here, because you can actually make a game in this engine right now. But that's not what we're going to be doing. You've got a few here. You've got View, Select, Add an Object. You've got Object Mode. You've got a couple of extra gizmos down here, but we'll only be using a few of these. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click this here. This is a rotation tool. If you hold Control, left click on one of these little lines, you can rotate, and it snaps to axis. It's an easy way of rotating in absolute values, rather than having it like a little bit on an angle and you can't align it perfectly. Now, if I was to not hold Control, I have more freedom. However, trying to line this up perfectly, as you can see, it's still not lined up perfectly because one line's lighter than the other, which means it's not actually in a line. If you press Control and Z, it goes back to how it was before. Now, if I use the pointer tool again, you see you've got X, Y, and Z. These are different X, Y, and Z compared to Unity, however, but I believe I explained in my last tutorial, well, one of my first tutorials about this, how the axes aren't the same. I don't know if it's been changed, but if you have to use vector 3 dot up to get it to rotate, then no, it's not. Now, if you press S, it scales. If you just press S and then move your mouse, it just scales like this. Closer into the center you get, the smaller it gets. If you press right click, however, when I'm scaling, and I don't like how I've done it, if I press right click it cancels the previous action, which is good, because if you do something wrong, if you press right click before you accept the changes. So if I was to scale it and click, well, I can't go back now by hitting right click because I've already confirmed them, so I have to undo by pressing Ctrl Z. Now if I press scale, the S key for scale, then I press X, it's going to scale on the X axis. See? It only scales on the X. If I press Y, it only scales on the Y. If I press Z, it only scales on the Z. Now if I press X, if I press scale, then press X, and I hold Control, I've got more control over this. So now I've got a decent sort of disc shape. Now, if you want to actually edit this, you can't at the moment. And that's where you come down here where it says Object Mode. With this object selected, if you don't select the object, you won't be able to enable edit mode. If you go to edit mode, you see you've got all these corners now, you've got the vertices. If you press, if you got the vertexes selected. If I press A, it unselects everything. If I press A again, it selects everything again. Now, if you press this one here, you see all the lines. It only shows the lines. If I press this one here, it shows the square little dots for the vertices. If I press this, it's a face tool. You see these little dots in the middle now? It means I can select faces. If I go back to the line, I can only select lines. And if I go back to the vertex tool, I can only select corners. But for this, we're going to need faces. So remember clicking right click to select. If you press on your, if you've got a number pad, if you press 5 and then you press 3 is this side view here, and 5 aligns the grid to behind. And if I press Z now, without pressing scale or anything before, you can now see through the object, which is amazing, because if you select a face with, if you press C, you come with this little circly tool. If you left click and then you click right click, it selects both of these faces, which is perfect for what we need them for. Now with both these faces selected, press E for extrude. You'll see this little blue line. If you just click normally, because we don't want to do any of that yet, and then you press S for scale and you scale in, you notice how you've now got a little border. E is extrude. The easiest case is for extrude. If I click this face here and I want to drag this out without dragging all the faces around it, I press E and then I can just drag my mouse and it extrudes just this face out. But if you press, if I press E and I click and I don't actually drag anything out, it still extruded the face, but it gives you the chance to change it whenever you want. Now I'm going to undo that. Now with that all done, I'm going to select both faces. Right, a good technique with this tool is, say if you wanted just to select these little outer edges, but you make a mistake and you accidentally click this edge here. Well, with this little C tool, is select tool, by pressing C, if you click middle mouse, it unselects it. And if you click left click, it selects it. So you can unselect certain faces and select certain faces. Anyway, now what I need to do is I'm going to select the middle, because I'm making a coin. If I scale on the X value, but I'm not holding control this time, and I drag in a little bit, it basically adds a little, it basically drags these side faces inwards, which is fantastic, because that way it gives the coin a bit of shape. Now if I click E for extrude, click off again, and now I click scale in the X and I drag in, I'm shrinking these two sides together. Now if I press Z, we've got more of a coin shape, and that is our coin. You can use the same methods to make anything really. It's how I made all them objects and models in the game so far. Now with your model done, what you want to do is you want to click File, Export, Export as FBX. When you've done that, find where you want to save it. So I'm going to click Coin Collector, because that's the file I've been using. I'm going to save it as coin. I already have a coin saved here, but I thought I'd remake it. And then you click Export as FBX, and you're done. Now you can minimize this, and if I go into the folder that all this stuff was in, and you go, then what you can do is you get the coin here, click it, drag it onto your Unity project, and just drag it onto your models folder. and it imported straight away. It's right here, see? Now that's done, we need a texture for it. I already have a texture in here. I believe, did I call it? Yeah, textures. I already have it here. And basically what I do for these textures for the models, it's really easy. If you just open up Paint or something, you can open up GIMP if you want to do this in GIMP. But if you just drag the edges in, you don't need it to be big, because it's going to be a repeated texture on this one. And I'll just make it 32 by 32. Down here you'll see it, 32 by 32. Now I just want a yellow texture. If I click yellow, then I click edit colours, and I make it slightly darker. And use the fill tool. Done. I could just save that now. And my desktop, and say coin texture. Save it off. And you can just click it. I'm going to delete the one out of here first. You just drag it in here onto textures, and there you go, you've got coin texture. Now if you want to put your model into level, just get your coin model and drag it. If it looks a bit too big, which this one is, come up here on that scale tool, click the middle and scale it. And as you can see, that's an alright size now for a coin. I mean, I don't want the coins too small. And then if you just click your coin texture and drag it on, there you go. You now have a coin. What I tend to do with models though, as I import them, you see this coin here. If I position it to 0, 0, 0, which will be all the way down here, and then I hold Control and then drag it up one, so it's up here. And then what I can do is create a game object, create empty, name it coin, and then I can zero this out. And then if I hold Control again, click this middle, drag it up, it's completely centered in our little object. And then what you could do is you could drag the coin onto that. There you go, you got a game object that's parented. So now if you want to move the coin, click this game object, not the coin in the middle, because then it'll go wrong. Because if you drag the coin in the middle, look, if you click the normal coin, you will have some crazy errors come up. So I select the game object, and then you can drag it anywhere in the level you want. I'm just going to put it over here for now. With it there, I can easily just grab, where's our scripts? Rotation script, item rotate, there we are. Drag it on top of the coin, and if we launch our level, you can see our coin sat there and rotating. And that's how you import a coin object. And as you notice, you've got no collisions. The best thing you want to do with this sort of style, with this sort of thing, is you click the normal coin, not the game object, but the coin in the middle, attached to the empty game object. Click Add Component, Physics, and you can have a couple of colliders. Mesh collider you tend not to want to use, for the simple fact of that it creates a collider around the whole mesh, and it can be quite heavy on the rendering on your CPU. So if you click Wheel Collider, you get this, but I'm just going to click Sphere. There you go. And if you click Edit Collider, you can, whoops, you can have it like that. It rotates anyway, so the player's not actually going to notice running into that. They'll just run onto it and it'll be fine. If you click the is trigger, the player won't run into anything anyway. They'll run into the coin and pick it up straight away. You'll only get some random errors if the player doesn't expect to hit it. So if you want this wall here, we can't use a sphere collider on this because the player needs to be able to walk on it. So a box collider is much better because that way it's level. But with random shapes, sometimes you have a tree and you're going to have to use a capsule collider on it. It all depends the shape. Do you want to use the best one to this shape? If you have like a really crazy complicated one, like a player model for instance, then yes, you're going to have to use a mesh collider on that. But anyway, I hope this has helped. I've been T-Junkie, and I shall see you next time. Goodbye.